imagine when you use real tomatoes and tomato paste and like you don't douse it in sugar or douse it in sugar and salt. And look, I'm not opposed to either in, within some reason. Our taste buds and our palate has been augmented to sort of like to crave sugar. Look, and sugar's highly addictive. It's extraordinarily cheap as an ingredient. It's used as a filler in almost everything that we eat today. And so, food companies know that, and they know how addictive it is. And so they've basically, adjusted our palates. And I think when you start to remove it and you go, oh, wow, this is what real food tastes like.
Welcome to Winning at Work, the podcast for foodies, founders, and food and beverage professionals. If you wanted to discover a new brand, a new food or beverage to try, there are literally thousands of companies out there. It is very difficult to do that. That's why we curate the different, the better, and the special brands here each and every week, so you don't have to do the heavy lifting. If you're a founder and you're looking to connect with other like-minded executives, we make that very easy. And if you just work in the food and beverage industry and you're looking for fresh inspiration, we have that here in spades.
This episode is sponsored by Temple. Congratulations, you're selling in retail. But the competition is fierce and your brand is surrounded by similar products. How will consumers find you? Let Temple show you an innovative retail sales solution. Click on the Attract Consumers link below. Need to attract great employees? Click on the Hire Now below and we'll show you how to use your culture to help you stand out. Stay tuned for this week's episode.
Welcome to Winning at Work, everybody. It is Tony, and a lot of the smaller, mid-sized brands that I have been speaking to, they have one or two SKUs. Maybe they have one product, multiple flavors. They've just gotten into retail or in grocery, or maybe they're kind of expanding the footprint into food service. But what I really like about the conversation you're going to listen to today, we've got Jason Burke. He's the CEO. Or is it New Primal, or should we say New Primal and Nobel Made? I guess I'm confused already. Not a good start for your podcast host.
That's okay. The company is the New Primal. That is the corporate entity, but we do have a sub brand out of the New Primal called Nobel Made. So it's both, and I understand why it's confusing. We've recently kind of pulled these apart, so I can totally understand that.
Okay, I thought, wait a minute, do I announce you as the New Primal, or do I do Nobel Made? I really love the Nobel Made because you got the beautiful owl. It's beautiful. But what I really like about what you guys are going to be hearing today is Jason is the entrepreneur that you can look to in the sense that he's been at this now for 11 years. And, he started in jerky and meat sticks, kind of went with the grass-fed, pasture-raised, soy-free, paleo-friendly, real low sugar. Really good. By the way, great sample box. Loved it. We were all tearing into them. They're great snacks on the go. I think you've done a nice job with that. And I think the success from that enabled him then to move into Whole30 approved sauces and marinades. So I think what you're going to find interesting here is the evolution of a small brand not being so small now and having national distribution. So we're going to have a lot of interesting conversation around, how he's supporting multiple brands or categories and SKUs all across the country. It gets much more complicated. Jason, thank you for taking time out. You've just moved. You've got a new product launching. I mean, what the heck? Where's family and all this?
I don't like to do things the easy way, apparently. Now, listen, the kids started school a few weeks ago. We're rocking and rolling. Yeah.
There you go. Off to school. Thank you. We'll see you at 3.
Yeah, that's it. Rocking and rolling. I dropped them off this morning. So
it's the best feeling. It's like you love summer, and then it's like, oh, I can't wait to just drop them off.
They need it too. There's only so much you can do, and then they need a little bit more structure in their day. So
yeah, they do. And they kind of look to us, for the plan for the day, and it gets a little exhausting. So I have to say, look, the sample box that we got was loaded. And what I love about your sauces and your marinades is that you lead with this beautiful owl, Nobel Made, wisely made with noble ingredients. And you're obviously hitting the low sugar, really, really strong keto. But I want to read something. It's your mission, and I'd love you just to kind of expand on this. A few truths from my mother's kitchen. Simple meals mean more time together. Good meals spark lively conversation, and great meals fill hearts. We crafted these irresistible sauces and seasonings from simple, good-for-you ingredients in the noble effort to help families make a return to the table. Join us. What a great, simple, heartfelt, mission.
Yeah. Tony, the genesis of that, or the evolution of that statement, occurred over time. And, I was back in like 2008 or 2009, both of my parents got sick and both were diagnosed with chronic illnesses, both directly related to diet and nutrition. And so I took a real keen interest in food and its impact on our health holistically. And the big takeaway there is like, I learned how to cook and, not in a way that like, I wouldn't consider myself some sort of gourmet chef or anything like that. I'm not classically trained, but I can make a weeknight dinner and it tastes really good and it can be good for you. Right. And so I learned how to cook. And what I was attempting to do, I have this terrible sweet tooth. And so what I was attempting to do out of my corporate day job was stay away from like the afternoon candy bars. And I would make like homemade desk snacks, and I would take trail mix, and I would take boiled eggs, and I would take homemade beef jerky and a few others. It was the beef jerky, though, that kept disappearing out of my desk. And every time I'd get up and go to a meeting, my buddies would, steal my beef
Sneak
jerky
over.
And I was, I was sourcing my meat from like a local farmer, and it was all grass-fed beef. And like, I was using this high quality, seasonings and things. And I was making my own jerky without, the stuff that you find in the gas station stuff.
Yeah, the commercial side of it. Yeah.
And so it was good. I mean, good enough to kind of hold me over and satiate me throughout the day without going to the candy bars. And, but it kept disappearing, and this stuff's hard to make. So I put a tip jar out and I started making people pay me for it. And they did. They started putting sticky notes with $10 bills and $20 bills on it and dropping it in my tip jar. And then suddenly I was getting orders from these folks. And
that's crazy.
And so I was going home.
You literally had a startup hustle inside your corporate gig.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was my manager knew all about it. She'd be like, hey, can I get some too? And, so it was like a little thing. At one point it got a little bit sketchy because I would like roll up with like, bags of jerky, and I would exchange it for cash, like with my buddy in the parking lot. It looked really sketchy.
Right. It kind of looked like you had another operation going there. Right.
But nonetheless, one dehydrator grew to 6. My wife comes home from a girls' night out, tells me I got to get all the stuff out of our kitchen. Everything we have smells like smoke. Everyone thought she had just come from a barbecue. And, and so that was sort of this aha moment where like, are we on to something? And so the long and short there, and we can tell all sorts of stories about the middle, but September of 2012, I quit my day job. I went full time into the meat snacks business, really with just a ton of blind enthusiasm. I just knew that there wasn't an offering in retail that matched the quality and the ingredient specifications that I had put together. And people were ordering this stuff from me online already. People were buying it from me locally. And so we had enough going on where I felt like this thing had legs. If I fast forward through, 5 years into that, my mom passed away. And what my mom was my mom was like not a classically trained chef either, but she was an incredible cook. And she dropped out of school as a teenager and went to work in this Italian restaurant with this family that had all of these heirloom recipes, and really found her people in the kitchen of this restaurant, and found her calling in serving people. And she loved to cook for you. And, she also has these Hispanic roots. Her father was
she sounds wonderful.
From Cuba.
I read the story. Yeah, she sounds absolutely wonderful.
And I appreciate that she was. And so, she was the go-to. So she loved to cook. She loved to serve people. And I grew up in this little apartment, and people from all walks of life would come together around our table. And, it didn't matter like what socioeconomic status they were in, or it didn't matter like sort of what their religious beliefs or their political affiliations or any of those things. It didn't matter. They just came together around my mom's table pretty frequently. But it wasn't until she passed till it all hit me. And I was given the eulogy at her funeral, and there was about 350 or so people at the funeral. And I asked anyone that she had ever made a meal for to stand, and the whole place rose to their feet. And like I couldn't talk for the next 5 minutes. Like I had to like
oh my
step
gosh.
back. Like it was
Your
just
throat
like
probably just closed on you.
It completely closed. I had chills. Like, I just couldn't speak. And in that moment, it hit me that's legacy. And what she was a master at was community and connection, and curating community and connection around the dinner table. And so I thought, holy smokes, I'm in the food business. And not only do I make snacks, but I've evolved over into this other side where we make sauces and seasonings and things that allow people to cook together. And then it all came together, and I went, oh my God, I have an opportunity to really build on that legacy of helping people, make healthy meals and spend more time around the table together. Because let's face it, Tony, the most impactful, meaningful moments in our lives likely happen while we're breaking bread together. I mean, and I think we've lost a lot of that as a culture, as a Western culture.
Yes.
Food is like, it's always like it's like, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, I got to do that. And like, I'll eat in between. And
one of those things might have been the food where you're just running to go get it.
That's right. And so it's one of those things where if we can inspire a return to the table, and if we can inspire and empower people with clean, easy seasoning blends and sauces that, look, you don't have to be a master chef in the kitchen. You just dump this stuff on this protein and, shake, rock and roll, and sit around the table and just break bread and bond. And I, that was something that, again, it didn't hit me until 5 years into launching a food business that was my entire childhood. Like I witnessed this every single day. And people would come over every single day, and I watched people cry together and laugh together and argue and hug, and it didn't matter what their backgrounds were. And I just watched humans connect. And I think that is in our DNA and in our most primal, parts of our body. Like we crave that, and we crave community, we crave connection.
We do, unless you're a really strange kind of introvert. But I mean, there's fewer of those, I think.
I think so. So anyway, so that's when you read that mission, and that's a really long story. Sorry. But when you read that mission, I mean, I think it's important to know sort of the genesis of like how we started a company, and then how it evolved, and then sort of how it all came together to sort of, serve this greater mission beyond like, hey, let's, we make low sugar snacks and pantry staples that still taste good. Right. And like, but beyond that, like if we can inspire people to come back to the table and empower them to do so, it's just a much bigger mission that I'm proud to be a part of.
Honestly, I do think that's what's needed. And the fact that you said your mother basically was blind to who was walking in her home, which is what your heart should be doing. You shouldn't care. You just shouldn't care. If people have a need, you need to meet that need, and you bring them in and you feed them, you nourish them. What a wonder. That's an atmosphere. You're creating an atmosphere for people to bond together. And unfortunately, it seems like today's society, they're trying to pull everyone apart and say we're all separate and we're all different. And it's like, no,
That's right.
We're not.
That's right. No,
I mean, we are, but in spite of that, we can still come together and break bread.
That's right. And I think when you lose that connection, right, that's when we can create lots of division, right? We can get behind our keyboards and behind our phones, and we don't realize that there's another human on the other side of that conversation. But if someone's sitting right in front of you, you start to realize that, man, what connects you and I, 95% is the same, right? We might disagree on a few things or whatever, but it doesn't matter. We can still be friends. And so that was the, again, I didn't realize any of this until I was much older, but that was the beauty of, I can talk about like all the deficits I had in my childhood. Like, we grew up in this government housing in the Section 8 apartment, and, my family's really blue collar and no one finished school. And, I can go into this sort of like, oh, woe is me kind of thing. But then as I look back, I'm like, holy man, what a gift. Like, what a gift I was able to witness where, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, people started just walking in our door. I mean, and it could have been a neighbor, could have been an aunt, could have been a cousin, could have been someone from an old family friend.
That's really unique.
It was. And it was extremely
unique.
You
don't get that in suburbia.
No. No, and I live in suburbia now. No.
Right. You're not getting that. Everyone has the means and the wherewithal, and they all go to their own homes, and you have to literally plan, we're going to go to your house on such and such a night, rather than we're going to have a community gathering place. I would think that these products and these sauces and marinades, particularly on the Nobel Made side, it really lends itself to, if we could shift for a minute into that user-generated content where people can show and highlight, how they're using it, how they have kind of unlocked some new recipe secrets and things like that. Because I think people like to see how food is being used.
Sure.
And it kind of sparks the creativity.
Totally.
Has that helped the brand in some ways?
Yeah, 100%. So, when we launched grass-fed beef jerky, and I think we were the first. I don't know that anyone else was doing it, maybe outside of a local farmer's market, but I think we were the first to push into retail with a grass-fed beef jerky product. And, it was needed. I mean, the category was disgusting and it needed someone to come clean it up. But, user-generated content, and sharing that it only goes so far. It's the road trip, it's the backpacking trip, it's out on the fishing, maybe you put it in a lunchbox snack, that kind of thing. And then that's it. Like, what else are you going to do? But yeah, I mean, when you've got a marinade or a cooking sauce or some sort of dipping sauce, like the possibilities are endless and people are really creative. And I mean, I've been inspired by what other people do with sauces that we make, and I'll go make it. I'll see someone post something on social
that's cool.
media.
I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, I'm going to go try that. And usually it's really good. We actually launched a product last month inspired by user generated content where people were, we make a low sugar barbecue sauce. And we make a really clean label buffalo sauce. And people were combining the barbecue sauce with the buffalo sauce, mixing it together as like a kind of like a sweet and spicy sauce. Oh. And they were, using that to put on their barbecue. And so like somebody in our office said, we should try that. And I thought, man, this is kind of strange. And we did. And it is really good.
It's good.
It's really good.
It's good.
So last month we launched that at Sprouts, or actually we're in September now. So in July we launched that at Sprouts. We launched a buffalo barbecue sauce. And so, we decided to,
voila.
Yeah, voila, there you go. So that's right. It does lend itself to UGC much more than like meat snacks would.
Now, I got to say, too, what I really liked about the less sugar ketchup, a couple things. When you're consuming a lot of the commercial products, there's so much sugar in there. You've become accustomed to tasting the sugar and not understanding really what you're tasting or what the other food is there. What I mean is when you take the sugar out, you really get to highlight and taste the actual ingredients.
Yes.
And I have found a wonderful hamburger that I love. And I order these hamburgers online just because they're just fantastic. The blends that they use, and they don't really need much on them at all. But I started putting this less sugar ketchup on it. Your less sugar ketchup literally tastes like almost like I don't want to say a marinara, but it's pretty darn close. Well, it's so zesty and tomatoey.
Yeah, well,
if that's a word, tomatoey.
Yeah, tomatoey is. We'll make it a word right now. when you imagine when you use real tomatoes and tomato paste, and like you don't douse it in sugar, or douse it in sugar and salt. And look, I'm not opposed to either in within some reason, but we have been, our taste buds and our palate has been augmented to sort of like to crave sugar. Look,
yes.
And sugar's highly addictive. It's extraordinarily cheap as an ingredient. it's used as a filler in almost everything that we eat today. And so, yeah, food companies know that, and they know how addictive it is. And so they've basically, adjusted our palates. And I think when you start to remove it and you go, oh, wow, this is what real food tastes like.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. You said it so much better than me. They have engineered our palate.
That's right. Absolutely.
And now we crave that crap.
That's right. When we launched grass-fed beef jerky, the leading jerky in the stores at the time had 10 grams of sugar per ounce. And it's supposed to be a protein snack. And so those bags come in 3-ounce bags typically. And so there was 30 grams of sugar in a bag of beef jerky when we launched this stuff. And that's the equivalent of 3 Krispy Kreme glazed donuts. And I go, you know what? If I want sugar, I'm going to eat the donut. If I want the protein snack, I want to eat the protein snack.
Wow,
and so,
wow. So talk about, that's a visual.
Yeah.
So 10 grams is one of those glazed.
10 grams of sugar, glazed donut, rock and roll. And
yeah, why eat a meat snack?
What's the point? Like you're completely defeating the purpose. Well, because in the dirty secret of meat snacks is not the preservatives, it's not the salt, it's not even the industrialized meat. It's the sugar, because the sugar increases the yield of the finished product, which increases gross profits. And I'm not against profit. I think everyone needs to make some money, but that's the dirty secret in meat snacks and why there's so
that's
much
how you
sugar
can stretch it.
Yeah, you stretch that meat out by adding lots of sugar.
Well, thank you for the insight. So hopefully people will, and I think they are, keep looking on the back of the label now. If you don't understand what's on the back of the label, you keep going. I mean, that's really how it should be, unless you're just in a pinch and there's nothing else around. But of course, the argument is plan ahead, buy some things, stock your pantry.
Yeah, look, and there's no judgment. I think that, a decade ago, there were less better for you options available to you. Today, there's a lot more. And I think at scale, and as all of these sort of emerging brands who are trying to do the right thing continue to grow and scale, I think that you'll see prices level out as well. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, when you put products in glass jars instead of plastic jars, like there's a premium to that. When you don't add a bunch of sugar to the ketchup and you use real ingredients, you have to use more of the real ingredients. There's a premium to that today.
To fill the jar.
Yeah, that's the way that works.
Well, you have to start really, in my opinion, in sort of that luxury / natural category. I mean, those are the people who are looking for it. They understand they don't want all the plastics. And that's true. I mean, I didn't even really think about it at first, but you're right. These are all glass.
Yeah.
Right. They're not in the plastic, which that's another issue, in and of itself.
We could have a whole podcast on that.
We get a whole, and we have. We've really we've really hit the plastic stuff pretty hard. A lot of great entrepreneurs that are trying to solve that problem right now. There's some really cool things out there. You should check out Strawfish. That's a really cool company. They're using marine products, turning them into single disposable straws and cutlery.
Awesome. Love it.
They've just totally doing away with plastic. It's really, it's a great technology.
Love it.
Yeah, it's very cool. With all the different products that you now have in categories, let's talk a little bit about your sales and marketing strategies, okay, to get consumers into trial.
Yeah. It's first of all, the easiest, well, I shouldn't say the easiest, the easier part of the job is to get a retailer to carry a product. Now that's not easy, but is the easier part to call on a retailer to present a product that you've created and to convince them to put it on the shelf. And usually that comes with a fee. So you've got to have the money to fund the slotting fees or the placement anyway. And then the more difficult part is then to get attention on the shelf when there's 50,000 products in the store, or get attention online when everybody is vying for that attention. And so it's really, really hard. Let me just say that first. It's a combination of things, but for us, I think, in brick and mortar retail, you have to You have to enroll in the programs that make sense for each retailer. And so, I grew up in Florida. Down in Florida, the biggest grocery chain down there is Publix. And Publix is known for a few things that are kind of cult-like for them, but Publix is big on their BOGOs, and they run these one.
Oh, BOGO! I was just going to say they've got to be BOGO.
And the Publix consumer knows to look for those. They look for these great ideas, these great offerings, and I think you have to sort of play that game, at least initially. So you have to spend some money on trade to market your product to the Publix consumer, for example. You don't have to run BOGOs everywhere, but that is just sort of like a cult thing that Publix is really, really popular for. And they're short. They're not like this month-long thing. It's like, hey, 1 week, get it and go. And that typically can assist with like generating lots of trial. And ideally, if you make a really good product, trial leads to repeat purchases. So you need to make the investment in trial. So we do that. So I think that the point there is that depending on the retailer, we look to partner with them in all their various kind of shopper and trade marketing plans to help generate trial. We're still an emerging brand. We've got placement in thousands of stores nationally, but I still consider ourselves very much emerging, and lots of people still don't know who we are. And so you have to invest in the things that generate trial at the point of purchase. And I think that's the same online. And so for us, we've just found that as opposed to trying to kind of fight for everyone's attention on social media, not that we don't have a presence there, but we're not spending a lot of ad dollars there. We spend it at the point of purchase. So, we have a really large presence on Amazon. People are on Amazon, their wallets are open, they're already shopping, they're already looking for certain things. And so we would just want to make sure that, we're doing everything we can to funnel the attention of the brand towards people.
So when people are shopping for a particular item on Amazon, you can pay to have your product placed and popped up, and hey, people typically buy this. It would make sense, particularly for a lot of the beef jerky and things like that, like and any kind of camping gear, example.
That's right. That's right. And very similar on the other sort of shopping apps, like on the Instacarts of the world, right? And I'm not looking to trade you up from, on barbecue sauce. I'm not looking to trade you up from Sweet Baby Ray's. That's $1.99 and it's, 72 grams of sugar or whatever the number is. I'm not going to trade you up per se right from there. But if you're looking for barbecue sauce, or if you're looking for a natural barbecue sauce, or, low sugar or less sugar, something like that, you're going to find me. And I'm going to make sure that all of our, we've got ad dollars funneling towards helping you find us. And then I don't think anything in food beats demoing. I still don't, it's sort of had
there you go.
COVID sort of threw a huge monkey wrench in like the idea of sampling and demoing, and it's far more difficult today than it was then. But
let's talk about that, because that's something I'm really passionate about. Talk to me a little bit about your demo programs and what works. How do you find your ambassadors? Are they fans? Are they paid? I know you have an affiliate program. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that too. Let's start with the demos and the ambassador programs. Well,
there's nothing better than letting somebody try your product. I mean, people don't like this, particularly when something is priced at a premium to standard conventional offerings. People don't want to, make that investment unless they know it's going to be good. And so, they need to try it. So I think that holistically it's super necessary. Ambassadors have always come from fans. And I don't think there's any better person to tell the story than someone who's already consuming the product, who already likes it, who's really passionate about it. We pay everybody who's going to do a demo for us. We make sure that they get paid. Now, some places, like, for example, Costco, where we've done a few rotations, they have their own internal program. They have their own internal people. You can't send in an ambassador to do it. Like, you have to use their systems, their structure, their programming. And so you can make suggestions on, like, how to pair products and things like that. But you have less control. And then there's some other retailers where, early in our business, I mentioned Publix earlier, so I'll just stay on that train. Our first big win was Publix, and we had 300 stores selling our beef jerky. And me and my partner drove around, and we would do like 3 demos a day each at different Publix stores. And we would just go for 2 hours, pass out samples, tell people about the product, get them excited, move to the next store. And we did that like for 2 years. Like it was like every weekend was like a Publix weekend. And so we spent tons of time just telling the story. And so, yeah, we need ambassadors to do that. That doesn't scale, right? I mean, I can't just personally be and I'll still show up. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't scale, right? I can't reach.
There's only one of you.
Yeah. So, you have to have folks that are really passionate about the mission and who also are already users of the product. So I'm a big believer in it. It's more difficult to navigate today, but we sort of have to outcreate those challenges as we go. And then, you mentioned the affiliates, on this, it's same thing. Those ambassadors sort of usually extend into affiliates who go online and talk about your products, who list your products in their like my go-tos or my favorites or, whatever it might be. And they're really, really important to us because, I don't think anything is as powerful as user-generated content. I don't think anything is as powerful as, a trusted voice giving you a suggestion. And so, the affiliates do that for us and they send people our way and they direct people our way. And we try to direct funds back in their direction when they do that.
How do you attract either the ambassadors or affiliates?
The beauty is there's great, there's great software developers who have created systems to build affiliate programs and structures and things like that. But most have come from, they've kind of come from networking. I mean, people who already go online and like they'll post about us on Instagram or they'll post about us on TikTok or somewhere. And, we'll connect with them on social and say, hey, why don't you just, sign up?
They're tagging you.
Yeah, you're already tagging us. Just sign up for our affiliate program so you get paid for it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so it's really, there's nothing that we do kind of outward. I don't think we sort of we don't go out and look for. We usually just wait and find the people, and there's plenty of it. And so when the people who are sort of authentically already tagging us, we want to connect with them.
Well, and you can look at their content. You can see what they're posting.
That's right.
Is it tasteful? Does it, kind of fit with your brand image? And does it fit with building this family, back around the table?
That's exactly right.
If it's in the case of Nobel Made and the sauces.
That's right.
I think it's great. What has not worked? I mean, when you think back over the 11 years and all the money and the horrible things, let's try this. What are some things that maybe you could steer some of those early entrepreneurs from blowing a wad of cash?
Oh man, there's a few,
where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, we could, again, this is like a 6-hour conversation. I think there's a couple of things that really stand out early on though. I think we let perfect get in the way of good a lot. And so we delay things because they're not good enough yet. So we delay the product launch, we can't do this until the new website goes up. We can't do that until we have this new label. We can't. And so I think we really get in our head with this sort of fear of failure or maybe even a perfectionism sort of mindset. And so I think it's much better to just start and just know that the first iteration of something's not going to be the best, and just know that you can keep improving as you go. So I think that's a big trap that we all fall into, is we just we have this kind of failure to get going because we want to wait until it's perfect. But
that's true. And I've seen that in many areas of people's life. I see that all the time with people.
The conventional,
it seems to be a personality type.
Yeah, it is. And the conventional wisdom is you only get one shot to impress somebody. And the truth is,
right.
I don't know that you do. I think you can.
That's what I was thinking when you said that. I thought, isn't that the trap though? Because if you roll something out that's not perfect, are you going to lose a chance to get them back?
Maybe. But I think that experience is the best teacher. And I think that early feedback is really important. And, when we launched early on and if we had a quality issue or something wasn't exactly right, I mean, the thing was those people would tell us. They're like, look, I paid $6 or I paid $7 for this bag of jerky and it sucked. And it was first of all, it was oh my God, what am I doing? Am I in the right business? And then secondly, it was you know what? This consumer cared enough to tell me. And so they told me exactly what was wrong. And so that gave me an opportunity to connect with them and apologize and offer a replacement and offer to make it right. And I think that goes a long way. And I think that went a lot longer than
huge.
Than as opposed to oh, well,
yes.
I can't do. So I think that's one thing. The other trap is as we're making improvements and as we're like, updating along the way, I think we get really caught up in things that are going to be game changing. At least we think it is. And it's not. Like, oh man, that new website copy, it's going to change the face of my business. Probably not. You know what I mean? Not. That new package design probably not, and
I will say though, I will just say though, and because it's hard to talk about packaging on a podcast, but one of the things that I really do like is your owl stands out really well. It's very clever the way you've done that right there across the top. And Nobel Made. I mean, I know I'm like, the question was what has not worked. And I just have to jump in and say, but I can tell you what seems to be working is you've got a clever name.
Yeah.
And the logo fits with it. There's something about that. Nobel Made, and there's an owl. And what do people obviously think when they think of owl? They think wise.
Yep, that's right.
So you've really kind of hit on something. So I'm changing the question on you. I've heard enough. I want to get to this. What's the story behind you coming up with this? Because that's a whole process for people.
Yeah. So if you and nobody
we'll close with that.
Nobody
Jason.
can.
So how did you come up with that?
Yeah, great question. So when we launched the company, I knew I wanted to. I knew that sort of the idea of an ancestral model of eating was what I wanted to kind of build it on. And look, we don't eat like our ancestors did in any way. Like we don't hunt and gather for our food and the things like that. So don't take me.
We're not picking out buckshot out of the rabbit before we.
Yeah, let's exactly
have our stew.
So like a modern way to follow at least as what we can of an ancestral diet, would be, our new way of hunting and gathering is in a grocery store. But we can still try to follow things that are primal, animals that are raised naturally. We eat, seasonally. We eat lots of produce and veggies, and we don't eat all this sort of like overly processed junk, right? So the new way of eating primal happens in our grocery store. That's where we shop. So New and Primal kind of came together for that as the company New Primal. And then I wanted an animal to sort of be the face of the brand. I wanted it to kind of be on the logo. And I wanted a hunter, essentially. I wanted an animal that hunts. And, some of the stuff was, we looked at it, an eagle, it felt like a little too cliche, or a lion, it felt like a little too cliche, a little too out there. And I didn't want to use like a wolf or anything like that because I was making beef jerky and people think it was dog food. And so, we kind of went down the list. And when we got to the owl and we started studying the owl, beyond the obvious of, man, it's attributed with wisdom, and that sort of concept. Beyond that, it's one of nature's perfect predators. And
they are amazing.
They live on 6 of our 7 continents. They have a wildly diverse diet. They hunt, they gather, they can eat just about anything. So they're adaptable. They're omnivores, and they have perfect eyesight. They have silent flight. They have razor sharp talons, and they are completely stealth. And so I thought, man, this is nature's perfect predator, and it's also associated with like wisdom. And I'm like, oh, we have to do this. So the owl was just like, we had to do it. So we launched the owl with the New Primal. And as we evolved the company and launched into a new category over into sauces and seasonings, I didn't want to call my ketchup Primal, but I wanted to keep the owl. And so we just adjusted the owl a little bit, and we kind of came up with the entirely new name. Now, Nobel Made started with 300 different names. They got whittled down to 5 that we liked. And those 5 went to lawyers to make sure that we could protect them in a trademark situation. And it boiled down to 2 that we could actually protect, and Nobel Made 1. And so I
love it.
I just thought it really spoke to, what was inside the jar itself. And we wanted to convey that these products are made with integrity and they're made with the cleanest ingredients possible. And I thought that was, in the word noble. And then the owl, I just think, kind of tells that story about wisdom and tells that story about, we have this tagline on there that you mentioned, you are what you eat, choose wisely. And so, we're giving people the choice to try
and
something
wisely
different
made with noble ingredients
and better. That's right. So anyway, there you go.
The thing about the owl too, it's kind of it's symbolic, almost metaphoric for this stealth takeover of the category. They're not going to know what hit them.
I really like that. I'm going to take that. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but I like that even better. Look, man, there's these big legacy brands that have been around for a long time. I mean, there are certain things that they do really, really well. And then there are certain things that I just think they're failing the consumer. And so I think we can do better. And so that's why we exist, is to give the consumer something different and better.
Hey, Jason, before we go, I need to ask you, I've seen all over socials, you've got this new, it just looks amazing, Sloppy Joseph. What's the story behind this new product that you've come out with? It looks like it's a new take, on the Sloppy Joe. What's the story? What's the history behind it? Why did you decide to get involved with Sloppy Joseph?
Well, number one, it's kind of a World War II invention. It was like, how do we make meals go further? And so it was like, you took the ground beef, you mixed it with some tomato sauce essentially, and you spread it out and you put that on a sandwich, and you could spread it out a little further, and so it was kind of this World War II kind of rationing moment, and people would make it at home. But there's two sort of then genesis statements of like this guy in Iowa who was a chef at this restaurant would mix like tomato sauce and vinegar and some spices in with the ground beef and put it on a sandwich. And at the same time, Ernest Hemingway was writing and drinking at this bar down in Key West owned by a guy named Jose. And it was this dirty bar that the floor was always wet and gross. And so he started calling the Ernest Hemingway started calling this guy's bar Sloppy Joe's, because his name was Jose, he was Joe, and he was like, your bar is sloppy, it's Sloppy Joe bar, and so there's an argument on where did the name come from? It's between one of those two, and then in the 1960s, Hunt's, who owns Manwich, started making the Manwich product in cans and really commercialized this Sloppy Joe sandwich.
Manwich. Yeah, but we've got yours. It's funny though. It's called Sloppy Joseph.
That's right. Because, we're elevating him a little bit. Joe is now
You're
Joseph.
You're elevating Joe. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So, I was just floored when I went to the store. I'm like, I haven't had one of these since I was a kid. I'm like, we're going to make Sloppy Joes for my kids. And Manwich is the only product on the shelf. It's the only option. And I looked in that can, and not only do they use corn syrup, but then they also use high fructose corn syrup. So they have two versions of corn syrup in this thing and some other stuff. But those two alone, and I went, man, there's 60 grams of sugar in a can of this stuff. And I go, surely we can do better.
So if I'm doing the math, that's like a bunch of glazed donuts.
Yeah, 6 donuts and a can of sauce before you even add the bread and anything else. And it's like, can we do better? And look, there's natural sugars in tomatoes, right? There's natural sugars like in some of that stuff. But I'm like, what if we just took out the corn syrup and just, use the original sort of recipe, which was just tomatoes and vinegar and spices. And, if you need to sweeten it, add some I don't know, we usually add like pineapple juice if we need to add if we need to balance the vinegar and the acidity. We usually use like a pineapple juice or an apple juice, and it kind of balances out some of the vinegar sometimes. And that's okay. Like, balancing food is fine, but just to your point earlier, just engineering the palate to want to taste this overly sweetened thing. And it takes about a month. Usually it takes about 30 days for people to kind of detox from sugar to reset their palate. And then they realize how sweet everything is.
I.e., that's the Whole30 diet.
That's right.
Well, if someone wanted to go out and either try this or even maybe becoming an ambassador or an affiliate, what's the best way for them to kind of reconnect in with you, Jason, and your company?
I mean, connect with us on social media, on Instagram or on TikTok or on Facebook. I mean, at The New Primal or at Nobel Made. We're on both, and we have social media managers and ambassador managers that are there ready to answer the requests or the comments or the messages. We respond to everything. So, it's sort of an internal rule of ours. If you send us a message, we're responding to you. If you comment on something, we're responding to it. So, there's a real human there. There's a real human that is a full-time employee of the company who lives and breathes this stuff every day. Who's going to?
There you go. So it's not ChatGPT responding.
Nope, absolutely not.
Awesome, Jason. This has been awesome. Been awesome. Great samples. Loved them. And I look forward to getting out and trying this new combination, because I've got the barbecue sauce and I've got the buffalo. I'm just going to have to start mixing those things up and
mix it up. You can use it as a dipper. You can grab a rotisserie chicken and mix it all up. You can make a chicken salad with it. I mean, there's lots of things. You can make your wings with it. There's unlimited possibility.
Hey, and we got football season starting. What better time than to
just in time
get out there and start tailgating. Jason, great talking to you again today.
Tony, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure.